question that I laid out, and I hope you were all thinking deeply about this in the break, was if Kirk Cousins does get extended, then Gary Kubiak would tell the Vikings that they need to do blank to win, because Kubiak is the guy with some rings. He's the one you should be going to. When,
4 of them, right?
When Mike Zimmer talks about getting over the hump, like Kubes is one of those guys who can tell you the insight into what it takes to win in the playoffs, because he's been there as an offensive coordinator and as a head coach and been able to do that. Right. So, Alex, what do you think that Kubes would tell Mike Zimmer and Rick Spielman?
So he walks in and like in his Josh Brolin voice, he's just like, so listen, I need you to extend Kirk.
Well, let's say that they tell him, Gary, you don't have a say in this. We're extending Kirk Cousins.
Great.
And then Gary says, well, if you extend Kirk, then you better blank or we're never going to win. So what would that be?
Stay out of my offense. I really do think, like, you looking at this, because I was thinking about it, and not only just for this question, but like, if you extend Kirk, what else can you do? I mean, are you really legitimately going to be able to extend Kirk and Dalvin and get help on the O-line? You don't need any more.
Not easy to do.
Right. And then you got to talk about problems on defense. Like, we haven't even talked about the other side of the ball. And then you sit there and you're like, well, we got to fix the O-line. We got to do some things. I really do think if he says, hey, listen, we gave you Kirk, he'll be like, great, now just stay out of my offense and I'll take care of it. And I think he will. I think he's given the track record and the players that he has had and had success with. I mean, you were talking about Matt Schwab before. I mean, just what he's done, I think that Zim alone will be like, listen, we're going to give you Kirk and we're out of here. We'll see you later. You fix that. We're going to be over here and have fun.
I would say his first line of business, like, so Kirk's extended and Gary says, we're focusing on the offensive line. Like, that has to be the first upgrade that you make over a Dalvin Cook. If you're prioritizing the extensions and where you fit in potential free agents and trying to keep all the pieces together, that he goes out and he finds your best option at left guard. And potentially even, I know, Alex, you're going to hate me for saying this, but as you're thinking about like upgrading your tackle spots, well, maybe this is the year that you move Brian O'Neill over to left tackle and you move, because it's not a bad option to keep Riley Reif, but maybe you move him to right tackle. And I know that I'm about to hear a groan on the other line, because we've talked about this before, but that's just, if you're thinking about piecemealing the offensive line, fixing it, quote unquote, fixing it, because that's hard, maybe that's the route you go first. But, you know, he's had offenses that have ranked top 10 in net yards per attempt 12 times since 1995.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's a really interesting stat. I remember when he came in here, you know, and his scoring offenses cracked the top 11 10 times. So, I mean, the stuff that they did this past year, where there were, 6th in yards per attempt, 8th in scoring. Well, a lot of that's the framework that he's laid out in 21 years as an offensive coordinator, a head coach. So to Alex's point, stay out of my offense. I know what I'm doing, you know, but it's also give me what I need in order to keep doing what I've done so well, which, you know, he needs to be able to fix the pieces of the offensive line that he deems are an issue.
Well, that is what my answer was going to be, is if you're going to keep Cousins, you have to find me $15 million a year or something, or a first-round pick for a left tackle.
Do you really think for a left tackle?
It just is the most important position by far. I don't even think it's close. And in Gary's offense, that, you know, center might be up there, and I don't know what you have in Garrett Bradbury yet. We got to see year 2. Year 1 of an offensive lineman is just a crazy, probably a nightmare for most offensive linemen. Like, first game, you just have to face this guy. His name's Grady Jarrett. Just go ahead and be fine. And then he kills you, and you kind of go from there. But, you know, we'll see in the second, third year where Garrett Bradbury goes to. I'm not ready to say that's not working out. I think center in Kubiak's offense is really important. But just in football history, and with this particular quarterback, I don't think you can have a regular left tackle. Riley Reif is a regular left tackle. He's right dead center in the middle, average, and he's probably not going up. He's going down as he gets injured, and this year mostly healthy, but he'll start to fade with the amount of injuries that he's had. If I'm Gary, I'm saying I need someone to, when we have a drop back situation, 3rd down and 7 in a big game, and Nick freaking Bosa is over there, over my left tackle, this guy is going to stop that guy. That's what I need, and that gives us a shot. Because how many times do we see on 3rd down and 7 with Kirk Cousins, out of the shotgun. You can't play action fake anybody in that situation. And he stands there and he stands there, and then things start to corrode around him, and boom, you're sacked. And that ruins so many drives with this team and this quarterback in big games. And I don't know if you agree with me, Alex, but that would be, if I'm Gary, that would be the first thing I say is, okay, we can do that, but you better find a heck of a lot of money or a high draft pick to give me something to protect this guy when we are in those big situations, because that's kind of why we lose a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, man, I was thinking that if you're going to really go down this Dalvin Cook road where you're going to pay him, eventually Diggs is probably going to be like, listen, man, why don't we just meet at the fork and we'll go our separate ways?
Yeah.
Why not send him? Just hear me out. Now, this is one of two places because Jonathan had a great idea we were talking about before the show. And we'll talk about it after this. But why wouldn't you send him maybe over to Stefanski and say, hey, listen, you got a Pro Bowl left guard over there in Joel Patino. We'd kind of like to take him over. We could really use him over here. I think he's a guy that'd be gritty enough to join the North. And also he's athletic enough to fit in a Kubiak type offense. And you don't really have to get rid of Riley. I get what you're saying. Like, you're upset because on the most crucial downs, the biggest playmakers show up, and it's not on the offensive line. It's always on the defensive line. And you're like, dude, come on. It cannot be that hard. But I think that if you were to mitigate the problems, because you can't get rid of Garrett Bradbury, and you can't just leave him on an island with Josh Klein and Pat Elflein.
Yeah.
Like, that is leaving him in the middle by himself. So you say, hey, listen, let's remedy this problem. Number one, Riley, your cap number's got to come down. Number two, we're going to send Diggs over to Cleveland to join Stefanski and his offense because they're probably going to be getting rid of OBJ soon because that dude's going to be wanting out of there. So you say, hey, there's that problem solved. There's your offense, Coobs. Coobs is like, great, thanks so much. Now stay out of it. There we go.
Yeah, I think if anyone traded Stefon Diggs for a left guard, though,
it'd be a fight.
I would.
What about Trent Williams?
Would lose my mind. Now Trent Williams is more interesting.
Jonathan brought that up, and I said, my answer was I don't think he would leave because Ron Rivera is there now.
Yeah, I think that changes everything.
Yeah, He seems really excited to come back. He's like, I'm back. They're just playing. Didn't mean it. Like, we get why he was upset. Totally understandable. He had cancer in the brain, and they were totally misdiagnosed. We understand why you were upset, dude. But now the problem's solved, and I don't think he wants to leave. I think he wants to stay there and be a Redskin forever. Like, that's his big thing, dude. But that would be interesting, though. That would be a serious trade.
Courtney, is there another answer to this other than offensive line? Because, Alex is focusing on improving that left guard, and considering that you've got to face Akeem Hicks and Kenny Clark 4 times a year, that makes a lot of sense. That interior pressure ruins Kirk Cousins most of the time. So it's a different positional value for this team than it would be for potentially other teams. Is there another answer, though? I mean, is Kubiak going to say anything else other than, okay, well, if you're keeping Kirk, then you have to blank? I mean, is it keep Delvin? Is it get me a third receiver? Is it make sure that your defense is on point? Like, what else would it be?
Well, I think there is, and I know I keep flip-flopping on this, or at least sounding like it, I do think there is reason to believe that you can't just plug and play another running back. I mean, yes, he's done it, but he's also
he might love Delvin.
I think he does.
Probably
listen
does.
to how he talks about him.
Yeah.
Like, that is a dynamic playmaker. They don't come around all the time where you have somebody who's that good. I mean, granted, he's never been able to play a fully healthy season. I don't know if that matters to Gary, because Gary spoke pretty highly of the way that they were able to adjust and get other guys involved when Thielen went down, when Cook went down. I mean, he obviously had a big part in that. I think it's basically let me control what we're doing offensively in the draft. By and large, top to bottom.
Yeah.
Like, give me the keys to, Rick, that's fine.
I want to know how much power he has over the roster.
We're picking it together,
because if you're Kubiak, you have so much leverage. Zimmer loves you. He says you're the best thing that ever happened. And you're like, okay, well, you guys are already paying me probably a lot of money because I wasn't going to leave the ranch for nothing. But does he say, okay, I'll be your OC, but you got to let me do this?
I think he is able to have a lot of say in decisions in the draft and free agency. And if I'm him, I would demand that, because you've seen what's happened when the offensive coordinator and the front and the head coach and the general manager don't get on the same page. And that's the 2018 draft. And that's the 2018 season.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how many times did we hear about F tight end and a million other things that John DeFilippo wanted, and it just never panned out?
Right.
And then what happens? They go get an F tight end with a 2nd round pick, and they get an offensive lineman with the 1st overall pick in 2019. So I think that the draft decisions, even before you get to the season and training camp and trying to put this thing together, Gary being able to say, this is my guy, this is who I want. We're doing this because it's going to benefit Kirk, because it's going to benefit what we already have. You will talk about continuity. Well, I can find you my zone fits because I know this is my offense. I invented it. Or at least this version of it.
How cocky do you think Gary is about how great his offense has been? I really would love to know. It doesn't come across at all. He's more of like, well, I just try to run them play actions. But to his family, is he like, you guys believe how awesome I am? Brian Greasy, are you kidding me? 11-5. Tatum Bell, Mike Anderson. Who the bleep is that? There's like a million guys named Mike Anderson.
No, dude, he doesn't seem like that guy.
No, not at all.
He's amazing. I love his. No, I that sounds well and good. My problem is, how much power does he really have?
Yeah.
On the day of the draft,
I'd
when
love
it comes
to know.
down to his F tight end or whatever he wants, and they're like, I don't know, there's a cornerback over here, guys.
Yep.
Really use at this time.
2018 all over again.
Remember, all of a sudden, what we told Gary in April doesn't matter anymore because this is right now. Like, we got to go right now. And it's like, man, I would think that you're right. For him to get off the ranch, it's like, listen, I want total control. I want full control. No one's allowed in. No one's allowed out without my say. But how much of that really happens remains to be seen.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we'll figure out by how it goes.
Yeah.
Like as we go along here, we'll start to learn, all right, okay, this must be a Gary type of move, just like the way that we've seen with the Zimmer moves, re-signing Anthony Barr. Okay, that is a Mike Zimmer move. That's the analytics people in the front office. We're not saying definitely bring back a linebacker at that price. Like, that is Mike Zimmer wants that guy. And I think we'll start to figure out as we go along just what type of moves matter to Gary Kubiak and if they're happening.
Well, look at how the first 4 rounds of the draft panned out last season. All offense, 2 offensive linemen, a running back, and a tight end. I mean, you can't tell me that Gary's fingerprints weren't all over that. And Mike Zimmer just sitting back, patiently waiting for the 5th round so we could finally make a defensive pick for a guy who didn't really do anything this year. I mean, that to me, when we were watching that whole thing unfold and the type of fits, at least the guys from their draft profile and kind of what we knew about Garrett Bradbury and Drew Samia specifically, they come from zone schemes. So I mean, that's Gary. Like, that's not somebody picking out of position and saying, oh well, just fit this guy in, figure it out. To me, that was what Gary, because he had the background in personnel and in scouting for 2 seasons in Denver. Also, on top of everything that he did as a head coach and as an offensive coordinator, he knows what works. So while he's never going to come out and publicly say, yep, those were my guys, I picked them all, I kicked everybody out of the room and started manipulating the draft board.
Gary went rogue and started drafting people.